Former Zambian President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is set to be laid to rest today in Hillbrow, Johannesburg in South Africa, with a private family ceremony planned. That has now changed, with the court already ruling that he cannot be buried in South Africa, with a later court date set to happen in around August. For more on that story now, we have SABC News reporter Griselda Lewis in Hillbrow in Johannesburg. Good afternoon, Griselda. What can you tell us about what happens now?
Well, Juliet, this is not the news that the Lungu family and the scores of mourners that have gathered here in Hillbrow had been waiting for. Unfortunately, the court, their ruling that the burial itself cannot go ahead. But as you can see here in front of me, this banner signifying those who have come to celebrate the life of Zambia's former president. And inside, though, there is a church service which is continuing, and that church service is still taking place in honor of Zambia's former president a few moments ago. And in fact, this was about, I would say, 20 minutes ago, the former First Lady of Zambia, together with other family members that had been present at the High Court in Pretoria, arrived here at the church service. And that's where we got wind of the fact that the burial itself will not be taking place. My colleague Kanima Panga was at that court sitting, and the family arrived here visibly distraught. In fact, the former First Lady inconsolable as she was being comforted by the Vice President of the Patriotic Front. That is the political party that the late former President of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, belonged to. This then will take place. My colleague Kanima Panga would be able to go into the nitty-gritties of exactly what that order said, as I'd been based here, Juliet, just monitoring, mourners as they came to pay tribute. That tribute is continuing here today, but will not go to that private burial which had been scheduled. You'd recall that what was scheduled to happen was that the service itself would take place here in Hillbrow, and then a bit later on there would have been a private burial which would take place. That now is not going to happen. My colleague Kanima Panga would have sight of those papers, which I have not at this particular stage. But the service itself is continuing inside. It certainly isn't the kind of news that the Lungu family and all those that came to mourn him here today were hoping for. Recall yesterday, Juliet, that is when we saw those papers from the Attorney General in Zambia wanting to halt the family from proceeding with this funeral service and not to have the former president of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, buried in South Africa. Them speaking about a public interest application that was being brought to the High Court in Pretoria, citing a number of reasons in the manner in which a former head of state would need to be buried in their home country. And that resulted, of course, in today's court action, which unfortunately has not gone the way of the Lungu family. A little bit earlier on, you would recall in the conversations that I had with a number of senior officials from his political party, including members of parliament, they did say they hoped that the court would rule in their favor and go with what the family had wished, and not just the wishes of the family, but the wishes of the former president of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, in which we know from what the family has shared was that the former president did not want the current sitting president in Zambia anywhere near the body of the former president, Edgar Lungu. And of course, there'd been a feud that had been going on for a very long time now. I spoke about it in my earlier crossings, and the family itself wanting to grant the wishes of the late and rather have him buried in South Africa, because if you had the repatriation of the body, of course, which would be taken to Zambia, the sitting head of state, of course, would play a particular role in terms of welcoming the remains of the former president. Now, the family, of course, had been quite steadfast in granting the wishes of what we now know was that the former president did not want, members of the current sitting government, including the president of that country, anywhere near his funeral, anywhere near his body. So it's an unfortunate turn of events at this stage, but you can understand that all those who came to support the Lungu family, many of them have come from around Johannesburg. The church itself is packed to capacity, and at this particular stage, it certainly isn't an outcome that they were hoping for. I guess having sight of the papers themselves, or what the court has decided, that will give some kind of indication in terms of when this is likely to happen. Once I've had sight of those, Juliet, my colleague Kanu Mapanga was at court, and I'd been stationed here outside the church. I really have not had sight of exactly what that order states.
Thank you very much, Griselda Lewis, who is reporting live from Hillbrow in Johannesburg, South Africa.